My name is Freya Thompson, and I've spent the last few years of my life trying to outrun the feeling that I'm not enough. I'm a pre-med student in Philadelphia, chasing a dream to become a doctor, the kind who makes a difference in rooms that smell like antiseptic and hope. Growing up in Chicago, I was the kid who brought home straight A's, the one who stayed up late memorizing periodic tables while my younger sister, Chloe, practiced monologues in front of the mirror. I didn't mind. I loved the quiet of studying, the way a textbook could make sense of the world. But somewhere along the line, I started believing I had to earn my place in my family, like love was a test I could ace if I just worked hard enough. My parents, David and Karen, always seemed proud of me, or at least that's what I told myself. Dad, a retired surgeon, would pat my shoulder and say, "You're going to save lives, Freya." Mom, who used to plan lavish events for Chicago's elite, would nod and add, "You're our rock." When I got into college, they promised to help with expenses, $2,000 a month to cover rent, books, and the little things that keep you afloat. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to keep my head above water while I juggled classes and part-time jobs. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? That trust shattered one Thanksgiving in Chicago, at the same oak table where I used to do my homework as a kid. The dining room smelled of roasted squash and Mom's rosemary bread, the kind of meal that made you believe in family, even when you knew better. Soft jazz played from the corner speaker, a holiday tradition since I was 12. Dad carved the turkey with the precision of a man who'd spent decades in an operating room. Chloe wasn't there. She was in LA, chasing her acting career, probably sipping mimosas at some brunch spot. It was just the three of us, and for a moment, I let myself pretend things were normal. Then, as Dad passed me a bowl of mashed potatoes, he looked up with a warm smile. "Is the $2,000 enough each month, Freya?" The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. I blinked, my stomach twisting. "What money?" The room went silent, like the air had been sucked out. Even the jazz seemed to fade. Dad's smile faltered, his eyes flicking to Mom. She was staring at her plate, her napkin pressed tightly to her lips. "What do you mean, what money?" Dad's voice was low, confused. "I haven't gotten anything," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't look away from Mom. Her hand trembled as she reached for her water glass, and I knew, before she even spoke, that something was terribly wrong. Philadelphia doesn't sleep, but I barely did either. My life was a blur of lecture halls, late-night shifts, and the kind of hunger that gnaws at your bones. Pre-med wasn't just a major. It was a gauntlet. Mornings were spent in anatomy lab, afternoons tutoring freshmen for extra cash, and nights behind the bar at a dive near campus, serving drinks to people who tipped in loose change. I told myself it was temporary, just until I caught up on rent, just until I could afford a new pair of shoes to replace the ones splitting at the soles. I'd stapled them together one night, the sharp snap of the stapler echoing in my tiny apartment. Breakfast was a luxury I skipped. Lunch was a protein bar snatched between classes, washed down with black coffee that burned my throat. Dinner, if I was lucky, was instant ramen or a day-old croissant from the cafe near campus that tossed out unsold pastries. My phone screen was cracked, distorting texts and faces just enough to make everything feel like a dream I couldn't wake from. I'd stare at my banking app, watching the balance hover near zero, and wonder where the promised $2,000 was. Once, I'd emailed Mom about replacing my anatomy atlas. Its pages were falling out, stained from a spilled coffee during an all-night. Her reply was quick. "That's a luxury, Freya. Make do." Meanwhile, my sister Chloe's life glowed through my phone screen. Her Instagram was a carousel of velvet chairs, gold-rimmed cocktails, and LA sunlight that made everything look like a movie. One post showed her in a cream silk dress, tagged Dior, captioned, "Mom always knows what I need. Brunch life. #gifted." Another showed Balenciaga boots, her smile wide as she thanked Mom for supporting the dream. I'd stare at those posts, my cracked nails gripping the phone, feeling like I was disappearing. Not angry, just hollow, like the part of me that hoped for fairness had gone quiet. One night at the bar, my body gave out. I was carrying a tray of drinks, music pulsing, someone waving for a refill. Then heat, dizziness, nothing. I woke up to the beep of hospital monitors, and 4 in my arm. The ER nurse asked if I had anyone to call. I shook my head. My manager had tried my parents, no answer. 2 days later, my lab partner, Jake, showed up at my place uninvited, a bag of groceries and a pan of baked ziti in hand. "You look like you're fading away," he said, setting the food down. I sat on my bed, hoodie pulled tight, and took a bite. It was warm, real, and I fought back tears over a plate of noodles. That night, I slept for 12 hours, the first real rest I'd had in months. Back at that Thanksgiving table, the silence stretched until it hurt. Mom's hand was still on her glass, trembling just enough to betray her. Dad's eyes were locked on her, his fork frozen midair. "Leona," he said, his voice sharp but not yet angry. "You told me you'd handle the transfers." "I did," she said, her tone too calm, like she was explaining the weather. "To Chloe. Her acting program is expensive, Byron. She needs it more." "Needs it more?" Dad's voice cracked, louder now. "For what? Brunches? Designer boots?" I couldn't breathe. My eyes burned as I looked at Mom. "You told me there was nothing left after tuition," I said, my voice shaking. "I asked you months ago for help with books. You said there wasn't anything." She didn't look at me, just dabbed her napkin against her lips. "Chloe's in a competitive field. Acting, LA, it's unforgiving. I thought you could manage, Freya. You always do." "Manage." I pushed my plate away, the smell of turkey turning my stomach. "I've been working nights, skipping meals, stapling my shoes together. I collapsed, Mom. In an ER. Alone." Dad's face went pale. "You what?" I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "I need air." The hallway felt too small, too familiar, like it was closing in. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside, the Chicago cold biting my face. I leaned against the porch railing, trying to piece together how I'd missed this. How I'd trusted them. How I'd let myself believe I was the strong one, the one who didn't need help. The truth was, I'd been starving for it, literally and otherwise. Inside, I could hear their voices rising. Dad's low, angry rumble. Mom's sharp defense. I didn't go back in. I couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, the house was quiet, like it was holding its breath. Dad was in his study, glasses low on his nose, scrolling through bank statements. He didn't hear me come in. "Freya," he said when he saw me, his voice heavy. "I didn't know. She told me the money was going to you. Every month." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I thought you knew. I thought you both decided I could handle it." He took off his glasses, rubbing his temples. "The trust fund, yours and Chloe's, it was supposed to be split evenly. Locked until you were 25. But your mother's been diverting funds to an account for Chloe. $250,000, Freya. So far." The number hit like a punch. Not just the $2,000 a month I was promised, but $250,000. For Chloe's brunches, her dresses, her dream. I felt something shift, not shock, just a cold, hard clarity. "What now?" I asked. "I called the attorney," he said. "We're starting the process to reverse the transactions. It'll take time, but it's yours, Freya. It was always yours." That night, their voices rose again. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. "You didn't even ask me," Dad shouted. "That money was for both our daughters. She needs it more." Mom snapped. "Chloe's out there, building a career. Freya's fine. She's always been fine." "Fine." Dad's voice broke. "She collapsed, Karen. Our daughter was in a hospital, and you let me believe she was okay." I turned away, their words fading as I shut my bedroom door. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about being seen, about matching. I'd spent years proving I could survive, but I shouldn't have had it. A few days later, Dad told me he'd filed for legal separation. Mom didn't fight it, just moved through the house like a ghost, folding laundry, rearranging books, avoiding my eyes. I packed my bag to head back to Philadelphia, my childhood room feeling smaller than it used to. Mom stood in the doorway as I zipped my bag, her arms crossed, like She wanted to say something. She didn't. Back in Philly, I dropped 2 of my bar shifts, keeping weekends for the extra cash. Tutoring was quieter, less draining, and I liked the way explaining things made the world feel orderly. I bought a new pair of sneakers, nothing fancy, just whole. They felt like a victory, one I'd earned twice. Once with work, once with the realization I was worth more than I'd let myself believe. My grades climbed, not because I got smarter, but because I could breathe. I ate real food, vegetables, even not just packets of noodles. Sleep became less of a luxury. But the ache of Mom's betrayal lingered, sharp and quiet, like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. Chloe texted now and then, mostly about her life in LA. I'd reply with short, polite messages, unsure how to bridge the gap. I saw her posts less often now, not because she stopped, but because I stopped scrolling. It hurt less that way. One night, Chloe called out of the blue. Her voice was softer than usual, none of the breezy LA polish. "I think I finally see it," she said. "What it cost you?" "All of it." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling of my Philly apartment. "See what?" "Mom made things easier for me. Always did. And that meant she made it harder for you." I didn't want to believe it, because then I'd have to admit I was part of it. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight. "I don't need you to feel guilty, Chloe. Just don't pretend it was fair." "I won't," she said. There was a clink on her end, probably her tea mug, not wine. She hated alcohol, always had. It was one of those small things I'd forgotten, and it hurt to remember. "Are you going home for the holidays?" she asked. "Not sure," I said. Dad was going. Mom was still in Chicago, working at a home goods store now, something she called temporary. Our calls were short, polite, distant. "I'm going," Chloe said. "Maybe we could go together." Not for Mom. Just to do it right this time. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. The idea of it felt heavy, but not impossible. Christmas came with no fanfare, just an early flight to Chicago, 2 carry-ons, and a quiet knock at the door. Chloe and Dad went in first. I followed, my boots crunching in the snow. Mom answered, wearing a plain sweater, her hair grayer than I remembered. Her smile was faint, like it didn't know where to land. The dining room table was set with simple dishes, roasted vegetables, store-bought pie. Turkey Dad had overcooked. No one mentioned the past, but it sat there, heavy in the silence. Chloe complimented the stuffing, her voice genuine. Dad asked about my classes, his eyes bright with interest. Mom talked about retail hours, her words clipped, like she was still figuring out how to exist in this new version of our family. We passed dishes, ate slowly. It wasn't warm, but it was honest. No one pretended we were whole, and that felt like progress. Later, I caught Chloe watching me across the table, her eyes softer than they used to be. I didn't smile, but I nodded. It was enough for now. It's been months since that Christmas, and Philly feels like home now. I'm still in school, still pre-med, but the days don't feel like a race against time anymore. I study, sleep, eat meals that don't come from a packet. My professors have noticed the change, my focus, my clarity.
So have I.
The weight of proving myself is lighter now, not gone, but manageable. Chloe's still in LA, but she's different. She works at a boutique that sells sustainable fashion, designing pieces from leftover fabric. Her voice has a quiet pride now, not the performative kind. She texts me pictures of her work, simple outfits, not designer, but hers. "They feel like mine," she wrote once. I told her I was glad, and I meant it. Mom's still at Home Goods, still calling it temporary. Our calls are brief, like we're both afraid to say too much. Dad calls every week, sometimes with a book or a bag of groceries when he visits. He listens like he's making up for lost time, and maybe he is. One evening, Chloe called as I left the library. "Thinking about the holidays," she said. "You want to go home? Together?" I paused, the cold Philly air sharp against my face. "Yeah," I said finally. "Let's do it." That Christmas, we sat at the same table where it all fell apart. No jazz this time, just the sound of forks on plates and careful words. Mom looked tired but present. Dad overcooked the turkey again, and we laughed about it, a small, real laugh. I left a tuition receipt in my childhood room's drawer, next to a note from Dad. It read, "This is yours, not because you earned it, but because I see you." For a long time, I thought strength meant silence, that love was something I had to prove. I don't believe that anymore. Love is being seen, and some stories don't end with healing. They begin with it. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, hunger, and hard-won hope. If this story hit you, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every fight, every meal, every step forward tells a story of grit and heart. Keep chasing your truth, and I'll see you at the table.